2 years, independent journalist Paul McNally spent time in the West of Johannesburg investigating the organised world of drug dealing and corrupt policemen. In his book, The Street, Exposing a World of Bribes and Drug Dealers, Paul tells real-life stories of how residents deal with a life of crime in their streets and communities. He is here, he's in studio to tell us a little bit more about this book of his and the true reality that so many people live in at this point in time. Paul, good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good to be here.
This book is something that is experienced every day by so many people, but this particularly is focusing in on the west of Johannesburg. I mean, just around the corner, literally, on Deckers Road. I mean, this is where you sort of began this. Talk to me a little bit about the start of it.
Yeah, the start of the book really evolved around looking at the police in Johannesburg, and particularly in Sophiatown. And we moved from there to look at the police, and then I met a police officer there in Sophiatown who I describe in the book as leaking. He was talking about the problems with corruption, he was talking about how he'd seen torture in the police, and I got to know him, and I sort of moved into this world of witnessing these bribes between the police and the drug dealers. So it was really through a police officer who, I mean, in the book we've changed everyone's name to protect them, even though it's entirely true and it's a non-fiction book. But basically I went through this journey with this police officer, Kaba, and he showed me out onto Ondeckers. And I remember the first day when I was sitting there in this shop on Ondeckers and saw my first bribe, basically, between the drug dealers and the police officers. And it wasn't late at night, it was right there in the middle of the day. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you talk about a bribe, is it really just to say, look, you know, here's your money, keep quiet, let us just continue with our business?
Well, the interesting part, and what really led me to realize that we should write a book about this, is the fact that it's all the time. So it's constant. And what was really enthralling was the fact that they're small amounts often, like 50 Rand, 100 Rand. And a police officer, when you see it, and you will have seen this around Johannesburg, around the country all the time, you see a police van park and idle their van. And then a drug dealer come out, and where I was sitting in the shop, the drug dealers would come out from this side security gate and they would pop out to sell their drugs. And I'd say about every 10 times they'd pop out, it would be not to sell drugs, but to a police van. So now a police van is idling out in the road, doesn't turn off the engine, and a drug dealer goes straight up to the side of the van and drops a little bit of money in, pulls their hands out and goes back into where they're from. And when you realize it's 50 Rand, 100 Rand, and it's all the time, and a police officer will never be denied. That's the important part, because they don't want to make an enemy of a police officer. So even though they keep the amounts low, they want it to be a constant stream of cash, and then therefore the cops become reliant on this money.
Yeah, I mean, and I imagine the morale within the community. I mean, you're watching this happening, you know it's happening, but if you want to report it to the police and say, listen, the situation is getting out of hand, you know they're involved. So, I mean, they must feel that their hands are tied. There's nobody they can turn to. I mean, is that the general feel that is happening within the community that you were staying in and investigating? Yeah, exactly.
And the main protagonist in the book is a community member. He's a shop owner, and he's really caught between this problem of if he speaks out against the police, then he compromises his security. The book opens with him going down to the Sophiatown police station and shouting at the police officers and telling them that they're corrupt. And it's a moment of rage. It's an impulsive moment for the main character, Raymond. But then as a consequence, he realizes that he's seriously compromised his safety. And that's throughout the book, he realizes that the more he stands up against the police, the more, if he needs the police, to do their job for him, they might not be there for him. And then as a consequence, he's drawn more and more to these drug dealers who are out there in the street all the time, working right there. And you can't help but create a connection with those drug dealers, and they are always offering him security. They're offering him the opportunity to protect him. And the more you speak out against the police, the more you perhaps lose that security from them. So it's a horrible balancing act that you have between the drug dealers and the police.
You also speak about a couple of police stations in the book as well. In fact, I mean, I was quite shocked to see you mentioning the police station down the road from where I live. And that worried me a little bit because, I mean, this is, you're exposing an underbelly of something that is very dramatic. And I mean, if I feel I need to go there, I worry about that. But I mean, what has it done for them? Have there been investigations? I mean, if you have all of this evidence, you were watching, as you were saying, from almost like behind a glass, a two-way glass. You were watching all of this happening. Do you have the evidence? Do you have this on camera? Have you approached higher authorities about things like this? What's been the response?
We went to all the police stations and higher above with this evidence, with the book, and especially from doing the publicity. We've been in contact with SAPS throughout this process, but at every turn they have given no comment, basically. And I think that's just sort of a matter of course that they've gone. I'm hoping that we can get, I mean, the book has been published now, and we gave them ample opportunity before it was published to comment, but they refused. I'm hoping now that they will actually maybe investigate this a little bit further and really look into it.
Amazing. You've got some great comments here, and I mean, it's available in bookstores around the country and also for download wherever, Kindle, Amazon.
On Amazon and in exclusive books and CNA.
Fantastic. Just to end it off, I'll just tell you what Mutata Tsedu said. He said, from drug lords to gangsters to captured police who take bribes daily, McNally's book chronicles in a very fresh way the breakdown that has happened in Sophiatown. That's one of the areas spoken about. And then finally, Anton Harbour says, this is an important piece of journalism that gives rare insight into Joburg's rotten underbelly and the criminals, cops and citizens who coexist there. It's a scary story. Paul McNally, thanks for exposing it. And I hope something comes of this. I really do. Let's take a break here on the program. We'll see you after this. Do stay tuned.